last night was my 30th high school reunion. Yes, 30 years. And again, I walked up to a person and they said, "Oh, you're Kerrigan's father." Those of you who follow the Twitter posts and Facebook posts from my account know that I do many times put quotes from my children. Kerrigan gets a lot, she's on there a lot because we sit at the dinner table and laugh and laugh and laugh. Just all the things that come out of her mouth are just amazing. Well, I was looking up on the internet for other bits and pieces of wisdom from children, and I found a few. Patrick, age 10, said, "Never trust a dog to watch your food." Michael, age 14, has an important piece of advice no matter how old you are. He says, "When your dad is mad and asks, 'Do I look stupid?' don't even try to answer him." Tracy, age 14, says, "Never allow your 3-year-old brother in the same room as your school assignment." Andrew, age 9, says, "Puppies still have bad breath even after you feed them a Tic Tac." Kevin, age 9, says, "Never turn on the vacuum while holding a cat." And this one might be for our children. Amir, age 9, says, "You can't hide a piece of broccoli in a glass of milk." And finally, Naomi, age 15, has picked up a piece of wisdom we can all use. If you want a kitten, start out by asking for a horse. Now, at first glance, children say some things that might make us laugh. They sound simple. They come from a child's perspective. However, they do show the first signs of the building blocks of knowledge and wisdom. And their intellect, though it is simple, a lot of times holds a tremendous amount of truth in these little statements. For example, Naomi's little ask for a horse to get a kitten works very well in the workplace. If you go to a boss and you say, "I want this huge raise," maybe you'll get a little raise, but at least you'll get a raise. So that's wisdom that we can build on. That's something that we can build on as we start out. The wisdom we acquire as children, we build on throughout our lives. But even as adults, we don't always have it together. The wonderful radio broadcaster and commentator Paul Harvey, who I just loved listening to, once told a story about Dwayne Cowgill, who was a barber in Marshall, Michigan. Dwayne had a huge harvest that year from his garden, just gigantic, so much that the family couldn't contain it all. So he took all of his produce, took it to the front bench of his barbershop, set it all out there, all nice and everything, and he put a sign on it that said, "Free, help yourself." Well, by the end of the day, everything was gone. He goes home that night, comes back the next morning, and the bench is gone. He had forgotten to take down the sign that said, "Free, help yourself." Even as adults, our wisdom does sometimes fail us. As we come to what we think is a solution to a problem, we discover a big surprise sometimes at the end. And as believers, we see there is a step beyond adult wisdom. It is God's wisdom. We might think that it is just as simple to move from adult wisdom to God's wisdom, but here we're talking about something different. We are talking about something that requires not learning, not attempting to reach a goal, but a decision to let go. It might seem like ancient history to us now, but in the world of Paul, the Apostle Paul, and the Corinthian church, it was quite modern. We sometimes like to think that things were so different back then that they couldn't apply to today. There's no way you could apply what happened back then, but they faced a lot of the same issues we face today. Going to school and becoming educated was considered an important thing to do in the Corinthian society. In fact, education was promoted as a way to escape the interference of religion and focus on what you can see and touch rather than what you can feel and know by faith. That's why it was so important for Paul to write to the Corinthian church and say, there's something bigger here. There's something much bigger than the wisdom that you learn in school. 1 Corinthians 2, verses 1 to 5, we read, "And so it was with me, brothers and sisters. When I came to you, I did not come with eloquence or human wisdom, as I proclaimed to you the testimony about God. For I resolved to know nothing while I was with you except Jesus Christ and Him crucified. I came to you in weakness, with great fear and trembling. My message and my preaching were not with wise and persuasive words, but with a demonstration of Spirit's power, so that your faith might not rest on human wisdom, but on God's power." The words of Paul and talking about the wisdom of this age. By the way, I don't believe that Paul was necessarily putting down education, not at all. He was educated himself. he wasn't saying abandon school and abandon all education. So no matter what you think, that's not what he's saying, and that's not what the Bible's telling us. Instead, he was focused on the idea that at that time in society, education was held up as the ultimate goal. And he was saying we shouldn't be doing that. We shouldn't be putting up education as being the ultimate goal. Education's important, yes, but he uses the words taught by human wisdom versus taught by the Spirit. I believe that God made a world around us to be studied, to be explored, to be dissected, to be investigated in every way we are able. But as I come to the world, and I love to read about science and new discoveries and that kind of thing, to me they are all describing the creation that God made. To me, it shows the majesty of God. Every time I hear about some new discovery in DNA or gene research, it just shows how amazing our God is in the creation effort. In fact, to me, it even proves more so that God did create who we are and and the world that we live in. Now, Paul uses a very interesting way to describe this godly wisdom versus human wisdom. He uses the word mystery. We do, however, speak a message of wisdom among the mature, but not the wisdom of this age or the rulers of this age who are coming to nothing. No, we declare God's wisdom, a mystery that has been hidden and that God destined for our glory before time began. None of the rulers of this age understood it, for if they had, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory. He uses the word mystery. Now, when I hear the word mystery, I immediately think of a mystery novel. That's what I think of when I hear the word mystery, a whodunit, mysterious, secret. It's a secret that must be resolved by putting together the puzzle. That's what I think of when I hear mystery. But that's not the mystery that Paul is talking about here. In this case, as it's used many times in the New Testament, it refers to something that wasn't known before, like in the Old Testament, but is known now. 27 times the New Testament uses the word mystery. Jesus even used it in Matthew 13:11. He goes, "Because it is given unto you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven." So he even used the word. It is important to note that the mystery referred to in the New Testament is something that hasn't been revealed before. When Jesus talked about the mystery, he was referring to something that was previously hidden, now revealed. Paul here is using the word mystery in much the same way. He had actually adopted a word that comes from the Greek school of philosophy and science. In those disciplines, mystery actually meant to shut the mouth. The word mystery came from the word mouth, and it's to shut the mouth. It's a secret. But Paul never uses the word in that context. Instead, he's saying what was once silent is now made known. So he actually changed the meaning by his usage. What once was silent is now made known. However, as it is written, what no eye has seen, one of my favorite passages, what no eye has seen, what no ear has heard, and what no human mind has conceived, the things God has prepared for those who love him. These are the things God has revealed to us by his Spirit. The Spirit searches all things, even the deep things of God. Paul is saying that the things that no human could have figured out are now known. Something undiscoverable by human intellect is now revealed in such a way that we can all understand it. What Paul is saying is that you will never be smart enough to understand it. You will never be able to solve it like a secret code. You can't earn it. You can't work for it. There's nothing in human power that will achieve it. But that's how we are. We all like to think that we can solve anything. No matter the problem, I can solve it. I can figure it out. I don't need help. I don't need anyone giving me directions. Generally a man problem when it comes to directions, but don't need anybody telling me I don't know how to get there. If a woman is out driving and discovers she is lost, she'll stop and ask for directions. A man who is out driving and discovers he might be going the wrong way will not stop. It is a sign of weakness. We can't do that. No way. We'll drive in circles for hours and come up with the most creative excuses for why we have gone the wrong way, even though we won't admit it was the wrong way. On the way down to West Virginia, I was in the lead vehicle, and we missed our turn as we drove through Columbus. My excuse? We found a new way to get there. I say, isn't it wonderful taking the scenic route? Or how about, I've always wondered if this city has a bad section of town. Now we know. It takes a lot to admit when we're wrong, make mistakes, or just don't have it together. And I think a big step in surrendering to God and to let go of ourselves is to admit when we're wrong. When we missed the turn in Columbus, I didn't try to make an excuse. I didn't blame my navigator. And you're thinking that navigator was Austin, who was right there, but it was his phone. It was his phone's fault.
Oh, you said you knew where you were going.
Yeah, I did say I knew where I was going, but anyway. But I did say, we missed the turn. Can we get there from here? Find a way, Austin. We got to get there from here, because I didn't want to backtrack, because I didn't want the people in the two vans behind us to know that we were going the wrong way. It was too late. The problem is with GPS, everybody has a way to figure out that we're going the wrong way. Later in the trip, we had a couple of incidents that required some major decision making on the part of our leadership. In one particular case, I made a decision, even expressed this decision to our leadership and the other leaders, when one of our newest leaders, who might be present in this room right now, had an alternative opinion. Now remember, we had several adults involved in this, several pastors, and they all agreed that this was the right way to go. So I bring this up to one of our new leaders, and he gives us an entirely different opinion. And I listened. I walked back to the other leaders, presented this other opinion, and everybody said, guess what? He's right. And we went with Austin's plan versus our plan. But that was required everybody to let go. We had already decided, but we had to let go of the human part of us that wanted to say, no, we're right. Austin's not going to be the one that has the right answer. We are going to have the right answer. Do you know how hard that is? That is a hard thing to do, when you have to admit that you don't have all the answers and that somebody younger than you might. Well, it got even more interesting. Another night, one of our students had an asthma and a panic attack. And as I struggled with what to do, I was reminded that another one of our students has severe asthma. So instead of trying to handle the situation with my limited knowledge of asthma, I woke her up and brought her into the decision-making process. She knew better than I because she dealt with it every day. The hardest decision was, do we go to the hospital or not? And I just felt like I did not have the knowledge to be able to say yes or no. And I turned to her and I said, you make the decision. Do we go to the hospital or not? And she immediately said yes. And later on, when we were talking, she said, I can't believe that you put that in my hands. And I said, well, because I knew that looking at that person, you know what you've gone through personally. I don't know. I just didn't know. And I said, so in my opinion, the best opinion was the opinion of somebody who knew. And she said it made her feel really good that, and it was the right decision. Going to the hospital, we needed to go to the hospital. It was necessary. But to be able to hand that off to somebody younger and say, you make the decision, that's a hard thing to do. But again, letting go. And it's something that we all have to do. And when it comes to God, the mystery of God will not be revealed to us unless we get to the point where we can let go. And again, back to 1 Corinthians, for who knows a person's thought except their own spirit within them? In the same way, no one knows the thoughts of God except the Spirit of God. What we have received is not the spirit of the world, but the Spirit who is from God, so that we may understand what God has freely given us. This is what we speak, not in words taught by human wisdom, but in words taught by the Spirit, explaining spiritual realities with Spirit-taught words. The person without the Spirit does not accept the things that come from the Spirit of God, but considers them foolishness, and cannot understand them because they are discerned only by the Spirit. This is an important verse because several times through the New Testament, and we studied this as part of our devotional while we were on the trip, several times we discover that Paul is called insane for his beliefs. And this is a perfect example. And Paul is looked at as being crazy, and the people that were around him were called literally insane. You are insane for believing that God has anything to do with this. And that's exactly what he's saying here. The person without the Spirit does not accept the things that come from the Spirit of God, but considers them foolishness. The person with the Spirit makes all judgments about all things, but such a person is not subject to merely human judgments. For who has known the mind of the Lord so as to instruct him? But we have the mind of Christ. Paul makes it clear that there is nothing we can do in our own power to solve the mystery. Again, Paul isn't against education. He isn't against learning. He isn't against knowledge. He is saying we must let go of our belief that knowledge, human knowledge, will solve the mystery of God. And that's why I have such faith and trust in God, because I know that no matter what the situation is, that God will be there and work through it. But again, it requires letting go. Sometimes it's just letting go of the anxiety. It's letting go of the worry. And there were times, I will fully admit as a human, I worried, but when I did let go, suddenly everything came together. What does this look like in a practical way? Well, my good West Virginia friend Mark DeLong made a momentous decision and announced it yesterday to become an intern working as part of the West Virginia Baptist Campus Ministries as an intern with them under Tim Gray. Tim and Mark were both here as part of the Sam Jones Project. Mark wants to go into ministry, and this is just the beginning. Mark sees the mystery. The rest of the world probably thinks he's crazy. Working in the ministry is not lucrative, I can promise you that. He's not going to earn millions. He may not even have a steady job. But he understands the mystery, and that mystery guides his decision. He let go and took it a step farther. He let God. Sometimes that is the hardest thing to do. A young couple with a 2-year-old child went to visit some wealthy relatives. And while the adults talked, the 2-year-old got bored and wandered away. The adults heard the child yelling and discovered in the room across the hall with its hand stuck in a very expensive vase. They tried everything they could. They could not get his hand out of that vase. Everything they did, they couldn't. Finally, the uncle said, "I will take care of this problem," and he went and got a hammer. And he very carefully tapped the vase at the bottom, and very carefully so that they wouldn't cut the child. When they got the vase off the child, they discovered that his hand was balled up in a fist, and he was holding a penny that he found in the bottom of the vase. He wouldn't let go. We do that. All of us do it. We don't want to let go. We don't want to put our trust where our trust belongs, in God. And Paul is saying, come on, people. Godly wisdom. The mystery is there for all of you if you are willing to accept Christ in your heart and take Him as your personal Lord and Savior. The mystery opens to you. Yes, the world is going to call you a fool. Yes, the world is going to call you insane. But when you put your trust in God, when you put your trust completely and surrender totally, the mystery has been solved for you. Because suddenly you're not looking through the lens of what's in it for me, but what's in it for God.